Okay? Can you hear me? Hi, all of you. Good morning. Okay, sir, coming live. Okay, done. Welcome back to the session of fighting one more time. Okay. First of all, congratulations to all of you. It's not funny. It is very serious because once we realize we fight well, but due to some reasons it has got misfire. Okay, so let us target better this time and shoot perfectly. Remember my suggestion from the beginning, you have some seriousness. You must have some seriousness. I have observed most of the students who are preparing for one more time attempting NEET exam, they think last 4 months I'll get serious, or some more better way, last 5 months I will get very serious. Whatever the things that I have covered up, I will recall one more time and then I will give another attempt. That's not a good idea. In my view, arise whatever you have learned. Start fresh. Go in a fresh mind. Feel that I didn't learn anything. I have to learn from one more time basics. This time, target should not be missed. I often say nobody win during the exam, and at the same time nobody fail during the exam. If you want to come out of the exam as a doctor, spend your time to become the doctor before the exam, not at the time of exam. If you prepare well throughout the year, 3 hours cannot make you fail. If you didn't prepare throughout the year, the 3 hours will not going to make you win. Keep it in mind. It's not that you fail in the exam. It is that we failed during practice. Make it. Okay? Get serious. And at the same time, whenever you are learning, don't consider biology. Yes, since I am going for repetition, I will prepare physics and chemistry well, where I was lagging, and I will do biology later. My dears, biology is 50% of your paper. In fact, if you would have succeeded in biology alone, you will get sufficient number of marks. I think you already know it. Once we succeeded in biology around 95%, I'm not saying 100% you have to do, 95%. that would be fine. Automatically you can maintain the remaining. Be careful. I'm not asking you to prepare only biology. Be careful. I'm asking, don't neglect biology. If you do it, at the end of the day, see, the things that you have to practice throughout the year, definitely you cannot do within short time. Even you do it, it may not be going to be that much perfect. So that from the beginning, allot some time to study biology. Distribute your time. In that time, biology also must be there. Don't think I can carry out this biology in the end of the days. Okay, that is not never going to be worked out. So carefully from the beginning, allot of course some less time to biology and provide more time to other subjects where you are feeling lack of something. So you carry out biology along with you. One day it will protect you with lot many number of marks. Okay, well done. Introduction is over. Let me go with some fundamentals of biology in the name of morphology of flowering plants. Okay, let us get easy with that. Don't be too serious all the time. Too seriousness is not going to work out. So let us talk about this biological part, that is morphology. Imagine this year we have found very easy questions from morphology. Don't expect every year it will be going that much easily. In previous years, few questions they used to give in a kind of applicative way, and most of the questions, of course, from the morphology, that is memory based and theoretical content. Even then, they are very theoretical. You have to practice them perfectly. If you miss out one thing, okay, obviously it is going to be dragging you back. Let us learn from the beginning. Remember, when it comes to the last exam, they didn't leave any part of NCERT book untouched. That means they have given questions from even the introduction part, even the part which is belongs to scientist and scientist introduction, and the related information also they have touched. And you should remember, hereafter, just by hearting NCERT lines for the sake of biology does not work out. You have to understand, you have to analyze, and you have to apply. Then only it is possible hereafter. Actually, this paper is not new. Whatever the paper we have faced this year, it's not new. It was the original pattern of AIPMT and NEET. Due to some reasons, they thought during the period of COVID, every student has lost their brain. That's why they reduced the syllabus, and also they made the content to become very easy in the exam. That was the mistake what they have done, and they realize, and they are going to the original pattern of NEET exam. Okay, so we will prepare according to that. Of course, if they would have given any hint, the paper is going to be this kind of analytical, we would have done very well. It's not that we were lagging. It is that we didn't look in that side. Am I correct? It's not that we can't answer such kind of questions. It is that we didn't expected such kind of questions may be present in the NEET exam. So don't worry. Hereafter we will go analytically. We will go according to the new pattern of NEET exam. Is it okay? Let us stop the discussion and learn the subject. Today I am going to begin structure and organization in plants and animals, which is also called morphology. Tell me, what is morphology? You may have idea. Morphology. Morphology. Morphology, we know that external body analysis. It may be animal morphology, plant morphology. See, when you talk about morphology, we just look the external characterization of living organisms. First of all, why should we learn the external characterization of living organisms? Remember, this was the first science started in biology, which means in earlier days, just by watching the objects with their naked eye, they used to describe them. This is an animal, this is a plant, these are the things were not recently provided by the scientists. These were the concepts which were given by scientists very early in the beginning of human civilization. We have learned Aristotle, Plato, so many other kind of scientists. They're trying to describe the objects just by you watching the external appearance. That was the foundation to biology. On those days, whatever the external concepts they used to study, they used to call that was biological science. Actually, on those days, there was no word called science. Later on, there was an introduction of the word science. They used to say, this is a kind of animal character. This is the kind of plant character. Later on, there was a development of microscope. When microscope started, our microscope entered in the field of science. Then scientists started to analyze the internal characters. As we know, studying of the internal characterization of living organism is called anatomy. Anatomy. Then, after learning morphology of plants and animals, and after little bit improvement in the field of microscopy, we have learned anatomy. Later on, while we are studying anatomy, there was an introduction of a concept called physiology. 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 What is physiology? When it comes to living beings, remember, living things also a part of this universe. In the universe, during the course of origin of universe, let us consider, there were only physical objects. Air, earth, water, these are all the physical objects. Somehow these physical objects have been interacted and there has been development of some kind of living cells. That means inside the living body, if you break them, you will get only physical objects. The physical objects, they are interacting with one another and they are forming living things. How they are interacting with one another, that we are going to study in the name of physiology. Especially in the physiology, the physical interactions of internal things and also chemical interactions of internal components we will discuss. Imagine, heart is pumping. Of course, everybody, heart must be pumped. The blood as long as they are living. Pumping is a physical character. It is pumping a fluid. Fluid is what? A physical object. Fluid, of course, it is nothing but blood. It's a variety of physical object. And pumping the fluid is a kind of physical phenomenon, and within the blood, there are a lot of chemical reactions are going on. Like that, we need to study internally inside the living organism, the physiology in the name of physical with related to chemical reactions. Chemical reactions. Like this, in recent times, scientists have been understanding this phenomena like this. If you wanted to understand any body perfectly, You need to divide them into individual units. Imagine we have a wall. Wall is not just a one entity. It's not one body as whole. It is made up of bricks. Let us study first how brick is making the wall. Then automatically you will understand how entire wall has been constructed. In this way, instead of studying any body at a time completely, scientists have come with a new approach, that is, divide a body into individual parts. Study each individual part separately, and finally you can able to understand how the whole body is working together. This phenomenon is called reductionism. Reductionism. Think about this. I wanted to study about a kind of chemical. A chemical made up of molecule. Molecule has atom. Atoms are interacting. First, how atoms are interacting together. If I could able to understand, I will understand how the chemical has been made. Once I understand how the chemical has been made, I can able to understand how this chemical is going to physically work. Getting the statement? This phenomenon of or this approach of studying the science is called reductionism. Then come to biological. This is not the thing that would be applied to only in biology. Be careful. Reductionism, a kind of mechanism that applied to study components in minute level. Instead of studying any body as its whole body, we will study that body as in the form of small component. That's what is called reductionism. Then come to, let us consider living system. Consider human body over there. First one, I wanted to study how human body is working. I will call this phenomenon as human physiology. If I wanted to study the human physiology as all the systems are working together, it would become more complex, and most of the time I could not able to understand how individual body parts are working. Then we divided this whole human body or whole animal body into individual parts, and we call them as, for example, respiratory system, reproductive system, circulatory system, and skeletal system, nervous system. Like that, different systems we have divided. The body divided into individual parts. Over there, for example, I am studying about circulatory system. I will study blood vessels, heart and kidneys, and how all working together in order to achieve a phenomenon called circulation. Once I understand that, and I will study another system, how nervous system is working in my body. After studying all these parts individually, I will connect all of them and I will try to understand how entire human body working together. Getting the statement? This phenomenon is called reductionism. This reductionism is also entered in the field of biology, that is called reductionist biology. Reductionist biology. This reductionist biology has a definition, that is physico-chemical approach. Physico-chemical approach to studies of living beings. That's called reductionist biology. Be careful. Reductionism is a method of study of components. Reductionism is there in physics. Reductionism is there in chemistry. Reductionism is also there in biology. Over there, in biology, especially if you are talking, what are the chemical reactions are happening in the living system? It may be a plant or animal. What are the physical events are happening in the living system? All those things, if you are studying separately and finally you are connecting them in order to understand whole concept called biology, that is called as reductionist biology. Why I am explaining all those things? In this introduction of structural organization of plants, animals, they have given that concept called reductionism or reductionist biology. Look at here. For our understanding, I will read this content. Okay, it's necessary. That's why I will read whatever the information that I have explained so far, that information present here. Let me go fundamentally to understand how to take a particular statement for our convenience of answering in the form of question. You cannot expect from where the question is going to come. That's why I will read. You understand how I am trying to make certain thing in that particular paragraph to be highlighted, so that I am not going to miss any part of that paragraph in future. Is it okay? Let me go with that. The description of diverse forms of life on earth was made only by observation. This was happened in the early days. Please keep NCERT book with you. Today I will give some fundamentals. Later on we are going for in-depth of subject. Just if I give anything, you just note it down on the NCERT book itself. Later on we will have to maintain a separate notes for the class. So anyhow, what they are saying, the description of the diverse forms of life on earth was made only by observation through naked eye, or later through magnifying lenses and microscopes. Do you understand what they are saying? When we wanted to study biology, biology is nothing but study of life on earth is nothing but biology. Biology was not begin in one day. Today onwards, we human beings, we are going to study biology. It was not happen like that. It started slowly, gradual improvement. In earlier days, scientists used it to study, not we call them as scientists, let us consider as observers, philosophers, etc. etc. They used to study biological objects just by observing through their naked eye. Later there was an entry of magnifying lens. After the entry of microscope, there has been lot of improvement in study of living things. That's what they wanted to say. This description is mainly of gross structural features, both external and internal. What is gross? Gross means overall. External and internal. That means morphology and anatomy. Remember, by using microscope and magnifying lens, and also the external features and internal features what we are studying, they divided earlier days in the form of external feature study is called morphology, internal characterization study is called anatomy. That's what they wanted to say. In addition, observable and perceivable living phenomena were also recorded as a part of this description. When they were studying both external and internal characterization, they wanted to write it. See, anything that they were learning, if they couldn't write in the form of description, that data nowadays was not available to us. So what they wanted to say, either they observe by through naked eyes, or they may observe by using any kind of objects like magnifying lens, microscopes, etc. etc. But what they wanted to do, whatever the observation that they have made, they have written them in the form of script. That's what they wanted to say up to here. Before experimental biology, or more specifically physiology, remember that physiology was also called in earlier days experimental biology. That means how internal mechanisms are happening. They wanted to learn them by using certain type of experiments. More specifically, physiology was established as a part of biology. Naturalists describe only biology. Remember, I don't want to study. What do you mean by experimental biology and physiology? Think about that. I'm curious that something is beating inside my chest. On those days, I'm talking about right now, what is beating inside my chest? You know, I know, everybody knows. But on those days, I'm talking about. I was very curious. What is that inside is beating? Then directly I cannot cut my body and I cannot open what is beating. That's why they used to dissect, or they used to conduct post-mortem and also variety of animal dissection for observing of that internal features. Then after observation, they used to call this concept is called experimental biology. I wanted to do an experiment to understand what is happening inside. Getting the statement. You know one thing I have studied in some biology book. In earlier days, before William Harvey, the scientist who explained there is a blood circulatory system in working in our body, and it is working with the center called heart. Before him, they used to believe that liver is the body part which is pumping blood to all parts of our body. Observe that whatever the experimental biology that the earlier people have made, that later converted in the form of studies of physiology. I wanted to study physiology. This is right now concept, animal physiology and human physiology. In the human physiology, there is a circulatory system, nervous system, this system, that system, so many systems. But on those days, only one concept. That is, I wanted to know what is happening inside. For that, they used to do some experiment. While doing that experiment, they have understand some of the phenomena. These phenomena later have been understood in the form of physiology. Physiology was born out of experimental biology. That's what they wanted to say in this area. Is it okay? Next. Hence, biology remained as natural history for long time. Remember, biology is nothing but observation of natural phenomena that are happening inside. Okay, inside the living system, not only inside and outside, wherever biology was to be considered in earlier days, a system of natural bodies observation. Next one, the description by itself was amazing in terms of details. Okay, while they were giving the details, it was very interesting. While the initial reaction of the student could be boredom, one should keep in mind that the detailed description was utilized in later by reductionist biology. Underline that word, later by reductionist biologists, where living processes drew more attention from scientists than the description of life forms and their structures. What they wanted to say with that statement? In earlier days, there was only one concept, that is studying of external and internal features, and also later there was an entry of experimental biology, and later there was an entry of physiology. Altogether, they used to observe external, internal features and also physiological features, and earlier scientists used to describe this content. That means they used to write the information. This information was used by later scientists during the beginning of reductionism or reductionist biology, where they wanted to study the living beings in the minute level meticulously by using anatomical and morphological and all kinds of events they wanted to use for their reductionist biology. I mean to say, before physiology, there was a starting of morphology and anatomy. In earliest days, the biology means studying of only external features. Later there was a studying of anatomical features. Later there is a studying of physiology. And nowadays we are participating in a concept called reductionist biology. For that we need to go meticulously minute structures. This is possible to study these anatomical and chemical reactions by using the description that was provided by earlier scientists. That's what they wanted to say here. Hence, this description become meaningful and helpful in framing research questions in physiology and evolutionary biology. In the following chapter of this unit, the structural organization of plants and animals, including structural basis of physiology and behavioral phenomena, is described. For convenience, this description of morphology and anatomical feature is presented separately for plants and animals. That means what they wanted to say, final conclusion. There was a beginning of morphology and anatomy as plant anatomy and animal anatomy as coexisted. There was, but nowadays we have separate. And also morphology also, when there was a beginning of these descriptions, the descriptions was coincided. There was no concept called animal biology, plant biology, etc., etc. There was a concept called natural biology. Later we divided them, so that in the book also we have mentioned them separately. So in whole this paragraph they wanted to say biology started just by observing external features. Later there was a starting of internal features in the form of anatomy. Later there was a beginning of experimental biology, and later there was a beginning of physiology, and nowadays we are following reductionism or reductionist biology, where we study the components in physico-chemical approach, physical, physiological. Remember, this is a physical object, it's not having physiology. Be careful, physiology means whatever the chemical reactions that are happening inside the living system is called physiology. This body is physical, it does not have physiology. Getting the statement? So I wanted to study the physical reactions as well as chemical reactions that are happening inside the living system in their minute level. That phenomenon is called as reductionist biology or reductionism. Okay, then this is the introduction to morphology. This is for both plants and animal. Then go to, there is a scientist called Catherine Esu. She is well known scientist as anatomist, that means anatomical scientist of plant. See, about I wanted to give another thing. Whenever you wanted to study about scientist, don't study their birth date, death date, and where they studied and where they married, how many children they have. That doesn't matter. What you need to study, what was their contribution to the field of science. The scientist entered, what he known for, what is their role in the field of the particular science, that you have to highlight. Okay, now I wanted to mention what are the contributions Catherine Esu has made in the field of biology, especially in plant biology. She wrote 2 books. Be careful. One book she wrote in 1954. This book is Plant Anatomy, Dr. Esu's Plant Anatomy. It was published in 1954. Dr. Esu's Plant Anatomy. And this was one of the very famous book of Catherine Esu. Later, she wrote another book in plant biology, that is Anatomy of Seed Plants. Be careful. Anatomy of Seed Plant. This book, which is published in 1960, it is the one which is called as Webster's of Plant Biology, or it is called Encyclopedia of Plant Biology. Careful. She wrote in 1954 one book, 1960, whatever the publisher wrote, whatever it is, in 1960 one book has published, and 1954 another book. The book that was published in 1954, the book name Dr. Esu's Plant Anatomy. That was not Webster, or that was not, that Webster means dictionary. That is not the dictionary of plant anatomy. The book that was published in 1960, The book name, The Anatomy of Seed Plants by Catherine Essu. That book is considered as Webster's of Plant Biology. Be very careful. Okay? And she has received so many prestigious awards, and she was died at the age of 99. And some scientists even mention, even at the age of 99, she was absolutely dominated the field of anatomy in the entire world. She was known figure in the field of anatomy. In addition to these works done by her, okay, another thing we need to learn, she was well known for her discovery, that is curly top virus. Curly top virus transported through phloem or food conducting tissue. Phloem or food conducting tissue. Curly top virus. There are variety of viruses over there. There are some viruses which are making the plant to be appear like a curling body. That means leaves of the plants are getting curled. Over there, I wanted to show you a thing, that is how does curly top virus infected plant looks like. If you take a plant which has been infected by curly top virus, how the plant is going to look like. See this? This is an image of a bean where the remaining leaves are normal. These leaves are infected by curly top virus. Whenever curly top virus infect a leaf, the leaf is going to be curl inward. As a result, its surface area reduces. Ultimately, the plant cannot able to perform sufficient amount of photosynthesis. This is the curly top virus infected plant. Highlight regarding to curly top virus is here. Catherine Essu identified first time the viruses transmitted within the plant, not from one plant to another plant. Remember, while they were transferring from plant to plant, there are so many kinds of physical agents are helping them. They may be transferred through water, they may be transferred through contact between plant to plant, they may be transferred through insects. There are so many sources. They were called vectors. Now I am talking about a plant which has been infected by this virus in the root, and its effect is shown in the leaf. From root to leaf, how did this virus have transported through the body, through the plant body? This was first time discovered by Catherine Essu, and she said the virus, so-called curly top virus, transmitting within the plant body by through phloem. Not, see, there are only two kinds of conducting elements are present in the plant body. One is xylem, another one is phloem. Xylem, who is transporting water and minerals, that is not the responsible agent for transport of curly top virus. The curly top virus is transporting through phloem. That was the first description given by Catherine Essu. Important. Okay, somewhere else that statement is there, you just try to highlight it. In early publications of her, this is the statement which you need to highlight. In early publications, that the curly top virus spread through plant via food conducting phloem tissue. Okay, three works you have to remember about her. She wrote a book in 1954, and another book she wrote in 1960. The book she wrote in 1960 is called Anatomy of Seed Plants and not flowering plants. Be careful, ma. Anatomy of seed plants. Anatomy of seed plants, not anatomy of flowering plants. No. Anatomy of flowering plants means we talk about only angiosperms. She wrote about both gymnosperms as well as angiosperms. So in that book, whatever the detail that required to understand anatomy of both gymnosperms and angiosperm, she was describing. That's why it was considered as a dictionary or a Webster, or it is also called Encyclopedia of Anatomy of flowering, anatomy of seed plants, or for anatomy that was a guide, an encyclopedia. Okay, and remaining things, that's okay. Next, I am going to discuss right now. Introduction part is over. I will discuss about the concept called real morphology now onwards. Morphology. Morphology, study of external characters of living organism is known as morphology. Now, while we are studying, here I will study only plant morphology. In the morphology, we have two parts. One is vegetative morphology. Vegetative morphology. Another one is called reproductive morphology. Reproductive morphology. Two parts are there, vegetative and reproductive morphology. In the name of vegetative morphology, we will study stem, it's a vegetative organ, root, leaves. These are the organs which we consider as vegetative morphological bodies. Reproductive morphology. In the name of reproductive morphology, flower, which is the indication of a plant is ready to reproduce. Fruit, from the flowers, fruits will be developed, and seeds. These are all the parts of reproductive morphology. If I am studying about root, I am studying about vegetative morphology. We don't study their role in the reproduction phenomena. What is their structure externally? Anyhow, externally, and what is their role in the particular survival of the living organism? Okay. Now you may be getting doubt. Why we need to study morphology in first place? Remember, there are some technical descriptions. Technical descriptions. Technically, some of the statements, some of the body parts we need to learn. Think about that. I wanted to study in future anatomy. And after anatomy, I wanted to study about physiology. Altogether, first there are certain descriptions. That means from where root originated, from where stem originated. What are the external differences between a root and a stem, and from where leaf originated? By looking at a body part, how do you recognize this is root, this is stem, this is leaf? These are all are called technical description. If you know the technical description, further studies are going to be easy for us. That's why we need to learn. There are some technical description that are required to understand before studying of physiology and anatomy. That's why we are studying morphology. Is it okay? Next one. Then come to the concept that is in vegetative morphology. First, we will study about root. Root. Tell me what is root? Of course, root is root. What is root means what? There is a technical description for that. That's why we need to study morphology. What is root we know, but technically if somebody asking what is root and describe it, we may not have that knowledge. That's why we need to study morphology. Okay? Then root. Root is nothing but extension of radical. Extension of radical. Careful. Extension. In an embryo, there is a, here, consider this is plumule and this body part is radical. In that case, radical will be matured in the form of, these are the parts of embryo. I am not describing very clearly, but whatever the need for here I am taking. In the embryo, plumule is going to develop in the form of shoot system and radical is going to develop in the form of root system. Okay? So if something is coming from the root, you have to, something is developing from radical, you must call it as root. So root is what? Extension of radical. Okay? Then before going to that types of roots, etc., etc., what are the characters of root? Characters. If you see a root, root has some specific character. They are, it is positively geotrophic. Positively geotrophic. That means root always grow towards the gravity. You need not to say you are the root, you have to dig into the soil, so grow towards the soil. No need to say. Root already knows. If it is root already knows how to grow towards the gravity. That phenomenon is called positive geotrophic in nature. Next one. It is also having positive hydrotrophic nature. Positive hydrotrophic nature. What do you mean by that? Always root grow towards the water. Root has the ability to recognize gravity, and also root has the ability to recognize where there is a presence of water. Is it okay? And also it is negatively phototrophic. Negatively phototrophic, which means it always move away from the light. These are the three basic characters of a root. It always positively geotrophic, positively hydrotrophic, and also negatively phototrophic. Three characters. I have taken a part of a plant. I am getting a trouble. What part it is? Is it a stem or root? Observe its growth for a while. If it is growing towards the gravity, that is root. Away from the gravity, it must be shoot. Got it? Next one. Functions of root. If you are considering, there is a organ. There must be some functions are there for organs. First function, if you consider, it is providing anchorage to plant body. What do you mean by this? The root will help the plant to attach to any kind of solid substratum. Imagine a statement. If it is not properly or firmly attached to the soil, the plant could not able to survive in the external environment. And even in a small physical pressure, it could not able to survive. So first of all, roots are helpful for making the plant to survive, okay, by attaching on the surface of soil. Next one, they are helping absorption of water and minerals. Water and minerals Both are going to be absorbed by plant by through root. Next one. Sometimes storage of food material. I am not saying every time the roots are meant for storage of the food. This is not the regular work. Regular work is anchorage and followed by absorption of water and mineral. That's a regular work. In some cases, root is also responsible for storage of food. Storage of food, don't expect food must be stored only in the form of starch. There are variety of ways food will be stored inside the root for specific reasons. Okay, next one. And roots are also helpful for production of plant growth regulators. Plant growth regulators, PGRs. We also commonly call them as phytohormones. PGRs will be produced. Remember this, ma? Most highest quantity of PGR that is produced by root is cytokinin. Careful about this statement. Whenever you talk about a root producing a hormone or a plant growth regulator, almost all plant growth regulators can be produced by root. For example, a root has been damaged. For the sake of recovery from the damage, root will produce abscisic acid and ethylene. You should know that ethylene has both positive effects as well as negative effects on growth, which means it is a growth promoter as well as growth inhibitor. Both the cases it is working. That's the reason why whenever there is a damage, often abscisic acid and ethylene will be produced. And also for elongation of the root, there is a chance for the production of gibberellic acid. Especially at the root tip, two phytohormones are going to be produced. One is auxin, another one is cytokinin. Okay, out of all phytohormones produced by plant, in the root, highest quantity of phytohormone that would be produced is cytokinin. Why? Cytokinin induces cell division. The cell division make the root system constantly grow. Remember one statement. Whether the aerial organs of a plant growing or not, root always must grow consistently. Why? Root has to always reach to new location. I'm not saying the root, every body part of the root is going to grow. Certain areas in the plant body, root has to maintain constantly growth. For example, root has been grown up to certain length. Whatever the minerals present around the root, the plant has absorbed. In order to get new minerals, the root has to be extended. Otherwise, it could not going to get new minerals. That's the reason why, whether the aerial organs of the plant were growing or not, consistently plant root system has to grow. Lifelong, the root has to be growing inside the soil in order to get sufficient amount of water. Water may pour on the surface of root. You may be thinking we are pouring water. No. You cannot pour water to every plant that is growing in this nature. Who are pouring water to a banyan tree? Who are pouring water to a neem tree? They have to get their own water. Getting the statement. In midsummer, they are not dying. How do they die? How do they survive? They are surviving by extending their root system. That's the reason why, in simple thing, root produces PGRs. Correct. Out of all PGRs, highest quantity of PGR produced by a root is cytokinin. Keep it in mind. If you want, write it side by. These are the functions of root. Next, let us consider regions of root. regions of root. I am considering there are certain regions of root. First I mentioned characters, next I have mentioned functions. Now I am talking about regions of root. In order to understand regions of root, I will consider an actively growing root with all its extended parts. This is a root. Over here, the root is covered by thimble-like structure. Thimble-like structure. This thimble-like structure is called root cap. May I know what is thimble? Thimble-like structure they are saying. What is thimble? See, if you see a needle, one edge is like this, another edge is needle-like. This part is thimble, this is needle. The part which is penetrating the needle, this one is thimble. If you keep your finger, one thing will penetrate. Another area is not going to penetrate. That is called thimble. There are variety of meanings are there, but keep it in mind. Thimble means the one which is not sharp. Okay? Root cap. This is a thimble-like structure protecting root tip. Root tip. Root tip always growing in its way towards the gravity. If something is rough, touched to root tip has been damaged. The damage of the root tip ultimately leads to hindering of growth of root. That is the reason why root tip must be protected. The protection is coming from root cap. Careful, root cap contain permanent cells. Permanent cells. I think you have the idea what does it mean by permanent cells. Root cap cells never divide. It's not the meaning that every root must be having root cap. Careful this statement. I said root cap is protecting the root while the root is penetrating in the soil. Do you think every root would penetrate only inside the soil? Obviously not. There are some roots which are freely floating in the water. Pistia, Eichhornia, etc., etc. The roots of these plants are freely floating in the water. They don't need root cap. Are you catching the idea? And also, there are some plants are there who are having multiple root caps. Think about this. The soil is very rough. In that, root needed to penetrate. Whenever a root tip touch to a strong object, root tip is getting damaged. If it is damaging consistently, then there should be a hindering of growth of root. That's the reason why there are some plants who are having multiple root caps and there are some plants who do not have root caps at all. But general sense, root cap is there in those roots which are penetrating inside the soil. Is it okay? Now, if there's asking a statement, all the roots contain root cap. Obviously not. Only those roots which are making their way to soil, they only contain root cap, and root cap is a kind of thimble-like structure which will help the root tip to be protected. Above the root cap, there is a region which we call it as meristematic zone. Meristematic zone or meristematic region. What do you mean by meristematic region? Remember, this is the area where actively dividing cells are present. Actively dividing cells. The cells are actively Dividing cells. Dividing cells. The meristematic zone. That's the meaning of meristematic area. You know that. But you should remember, what are the characters of this meristematic zone cells? Cells are small. Cells are small. Careful. Generally, meristematic cells are notified as large cells. Since they are consistently dividing, they are little bit large. But here they are saying when compared to other areas, I mean to say, this is the area where meristematic cells are present. Above it, there is an area called elongation. Above that, there is a region called maturation. There are different regions we are going to notify. Overall them, when you see in the root, we will find the smallest variety of cells are called meristematic cells. The cells are small. Next one, cell wall. Cell wall is thin. Cell wall is thin. Very thin cell wall. Remember, when it comes to thin and thick cell wall, you should remember one concept. If they are saying a word called, this cell has thin cell wall, you should remember, they are talking about cells contain primary cell wall. Cells contain primary cell wall. May I know what material that the primary cell wall possesses? The primary cell wall possesses cellulose, mainly cellulose. Remaining cell walls also having cellulose, but the one and only component of primary cell wall is cellulose. Next one. They have lack of vacuoles. Generally, vacuoles are absent. Be careful, ma. One thing to be remembered, we learned some concepts like this. Meristematic cells differentiate and produce permanent cells. The process of conversion of meristematic cell to permanent cell, we call it as differentiation. Generally, during at the time of division, a plant cell does not possess vacuole. We also know that vacuole is a characteristic feature of plant cell. Around 90% of the cytoplasmic area of the plant cell is occupied by vacuole. That's true. For whom? It is for only differentiated permanent cells. Be careful, meristematic cells do not have vacuoles. Even they are present, the meristematic cells will have small vacuoles. The vacuole is going to be very small. Small, minute vacuoles are going to be present, if present. Generally, they are not present. If present, they are very small and minute. Who are they? Vacuoles. So, this statement I am indirectly indicating to you. If anybody says, all plant cells are having vacuole. Of course, plant cells are having vacuole. And they are asking the statement, all plant cells are having vacuole. Is it correct? Obviously not. Be careful about it. Next one. When it comes to their cells, large, conspicuous nucleus. The nucleus is going to be large and easily visible. The term easily visible, we call it as conspicuous. So these are the characters of meristematic zone or meristematic region cells. One is, cells are small. When compared to other cells present in the root system, the cells of this area is small and they are having thin cell wall which is made up of cellulose, and they do not have vacuoles. If vacuoles present, they are very small and they have large conspicuous nucleus. Now you may be getting doubt, why they are having thin cell wall? Think about that. If they have large thick cell wall which is having very rigidity, how do they are going to divide? In order to make their way to divide very easy, the cell walls of these cells are very thin. Got it? These are the characters of meristematic zone or meristematic region. Then come to point. Few centimeters away or proximal to meristematic area, we have a zone called zone of elongation or elongation region. Elongation region. Be careful, ma. Elongation region is proximal to meristematic area. What do you mean by proximal and distal? I will give these words. Remember, we will come across these words very often in all the areas. I have seen many students are having trouble to understand what is proximal, what is distal, such kind of words. Let us make them clear. Today onwards, we should not have any confusion regarding to what is proximal, what is distal. These words we will be identified in the body organization very common. This is a proximal bone, that is a distal bone. This is a proximal muscle, that is a distal muscle. Like that, lot of words we come across. First of all, we will learn how to decide which is proximal, which is distal. Imagine everybody has body center. Am I correct? Every body will have body center. Does it has body center? Yes, of course. If that does not have body center, it's not going to stay on the ground. It will go to space, and gravity does not going to work out on this body. Gravity will be centerized in an area called body center. So every body has body center. If it is there on the earth, imagine the statement, there is a body center present on this body. Clear the statement. Then come back to the story. I'll take a plant. This is a soil, and this is a root, and this is stem. This is the stem, and these are the roots. Imagine in this plant, this area is called root shoot interface. Root shoot interface. That root shoot interface, which means the area where the stem and root are getting connected, that area we will call it as root shoot interface. The root shoot interface is called body center of a plant. Body center of a plant. Careful. If anybody asking, does the plant has a body center? Of course it has. Don't mark the body center in the middle of the stem. That's not the area. The body center is present on the plant at the location called root shoot interface. What was that phase? Root shoot, both are connecting part is there. That part we will call it as body center of the plant. Okay? At that area, gravity is working on the plant. Gravity will not working on the plant on the center of the stem. Even you take a banyan large tree, or even you think about that, even you consider a long eucalyptus tree. While it is waving in the winds, if its body center is present here, imagine there is a tip, at the tip body center of eucalyptus is present. Once, what I say about body center, this is the area where gravity is working. If the body is bent, just immediately it is going to fall down. It's never going to stand. That's the reason why always gravity is working where root and shoot are getting connected. Clear? Now, if somebody is moving towards the center, that is proximal movement. Proximal. Proximity means nearness. Nearer to whom? Nearer to center. Imagine here either direction. It may be from root tip to root shoot interface, shoot tip to root shoot interface. In either direction, my movement is proximal. Next, I am moving away from body center to tip. This movement of mine is distal. Distal means away from the center. Distal. Is it okay? So whenever you consider these terms, proximal, distal. Proximal means moving towards the center. Distal means moving away from center. Imagine I am going to say some things which related to our body. We are not, half of the body is under the ground, half of the body is aerial. Total body is aerial. Yes or no? Our body center is existing here, for example. In that case, think about this. In this hand, let me take this one. It is visible to you. In this hand, this bone. Tell me, which bone is proximal, which bone is distal? This is a proximal bone. This is distal because this bone is present near to body center. This bone is present away from body center. Let me take fingers. Phalanges are there. In every finger, we have 3 bones. Okay, over there, this is middle, this one is proximal, and this one is distal. Whatever the one which is present near to the body center, that has to be considered as proximal. Are you catching the idea? So, whenever you come across these terms, proximal and distal, hereafter never confuse. The one which is present towards body center, proximal, away from body center, that should be considered as distal. In that case, come to the statement, I have mentioned this is the area where there is a presence of elongation part of the plant. I mean, plant root system is going to be elongated at this area. Elongation itself is a kind of process called differentiation. Differentiation. This is the area we will have differentiating cells. Differentiation is still going on. In which ways differentiation is happening? Cell length increases. Cell length increases. Thereby, there is an increasing of root length also. Length of the root increases while increasing cell length. Be careful. At the region of zone of meristematic, we don't have the cells which are elongating. The cells which are dividing are present in meristematic region. Elongation zone is containing the cells which are having differentiation. This differentiation making the length of the root is going to be increase. Here you will see increment. Imagine this cell you said small and this cell is increasing lengthwise and it is having large size in terms of length. Its size is large. How do you think the large size would be attained? It's not because of more quantity of components will be added inside the cell. It is because of vacuolation. I wanted to make a cell to be enlarged. What I will do? I will not add internally more components. I will increase vacuole size. As a result, the cells is going to get enlarged. So, vacuolization is occur. Vacuole size increases. Be careful, ma. Vacuolation is happening in elongation zone. Vacuoles are actually absent in a region called region of maturation. Vacuoles are present in a region called as region of elongation. Clear? This is the area where cell is, root is increasing its length. Next, finally, we have the area called zone of maturation. Zone of maturation. Zone of maturation, it is the area where root hairs develop. Root hairs develop. Root hairs are nothing but epidermal extensions. The epidermal extensions are helping for increase in the surface area of the root. Careful, ma. Root surface area increases at zone of maturation. Root length increases at the area called elongation zone. Be careful. Root length, root surface area, both are not same. I want more surface area of the root in order to absorb water and mineral. That would be possible only in a region called zone of maturation. Okay, and I wanted to make the root length to be increased. That is possible only at the region called region of elongation. Okay, and zone of maturation is the area where water and minerals are going to be absorbed. Minerals absorbed. These are the areas we will consider as regions of root. Is it okay? Are you following me? Hello? Are you listening me? I could see some comments over here. Enough. Today lesson is okay. Today lesson is over. As much I taught, follow that one. In the next class, we will be having continuation. Now, if you have any doubt, you give that thing in the form of comment. I could read it. What is the Sunday exam syllabus in botany part? You will come to know as early as possible. Next, anybody? Anyone? Anything? Any doubts you have? Root systems. Don't worry, I will teach in the next class. I will not die today. Okay? Just for fun. Okay, I will meet in the next class. That's fine. Thank you.